Welcome, future market leaders. Let's get right to it. Forget everything you thought you knew about just being an agent. Today, we're forging professional brokers. Now, this isn't just another training session. This is your RERA Masterclass. We're going to arm you with the legal and financial firepower to not just participate in the market, but to absolutely dominate it.
So, here's our roadmap to the top. We're going to conquer 4 power blocks. Think of them as 4 trials of mastery. We'll start with the very bedrock of trust. Then we'll build an impenetrable shield for your investors, master the complex game of jointly owned properties, or JOP, and finally, we'll learn to wield the financial tools that close every single deal. I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to feel unstoppable.
All right, let's dive into Power Block 1, the foundation. Look, this is the absolute core. Everything we do, every deal we sign, it's all built on trust. And you know what trust is built on? Undeniable expertise. The laws we're about to cover are like the steel pillars of that trust. Get this wrong, and even the biggest, most amazing deal can crumble into dust.
So, let's start with a really fundamental question. When your client is in a tough spot with a lease, how do you prove you're the expert they desperately need? How do you take them from feeling uncertain to being absolutely confident? Well, the answer is simple. You have to know the law cold.
And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? This is the difference. The amateur hopes for the best, but the professional knows what's going to happen. An amateur kind of guesses about verbal agreements. A professional knows the lease term defaults to the shortest rent payment period. And when a client asks about moving back into their own property, the amateur fumbles. The professional, they immediately cite Law 33, Article 25, 12 months notice, and it's got to be served via notary public. You see, this isn't just information, it's a weapon of confidence.
Let's keep that momentum going. 3 things you just have to know, non-negotiable points that give you a massive edge. 1. Automatic lease renewal isn't a maybe, it's the law. 2. If a tenant gets evicted for demolition, they have a legal right of first refusal to come back. I mean, imagine the value you provide just by knowing that. And 3, the most fundamental of all, you aren't a legal broker unless you are licensed and registered, period. No excuses.
Okay, let's talk about protecting your client's money from day one. An escrow account. It isn't just some banking jargon, it's the legal safe that protects their off-plan payments. The money doesn't go into the developer's general slush fund. Instead, it gets deposited into a protected, project-specific account. So the key takeaway here is this. You're not just selling a property. You're guaranteeing their financial security from the get-go.
And how seriously does the law take this? 500,000 dirhams. That is the minimum fine a developer is looking at if they don't deposit your client's funds into that secure escrow account. When you explain this, your client gets it. They understand you are their first and most important line of defense.
Excellent. We've laid the foundation of trust. Now, let's move to Power Block 2. We're building the investor's shield. This is where you really transform from just an agent into a financial guardian, literally protecting your client's capital with a fortress of legal knowledge.
So, what's in your arsenal? What are the shields and swords you use to defend your client's investment against all the risks out there? Let's break down the essential legal armor that every single professional broker has to have.
Here it is, your first and maybe your most powerful shield. If an off-plan unit is not on the interim real property register, the sale, legally, doesn't exist. It's null and void. This is not a suggestion, it's a mandatory legal requirement that makes the purchase real, valid, and mortgageable. Checking this isn't just due diligence, it is your fundamental duty.
10 years. Just let that sink in for a second. For a full decade after the completion certificate is issued, the developer is still on the hook for structural defects. This is a massive, long-term protection for your buyer. And when you can state that fact with total confidence, you're not just selling a unit, you're selling 10 years of peace of mind.
Now this one is huge. It shows you know the system inside and out. When a check bounces in a real estate deal, you don't just go to the regular courts. You go to a specialized body, the special tribunal. Knowing the right, exclusive legal venue for this saves your client a ton of time, money, and stress. It proves you know how the system actually works.
Nobody likes talking about foreclosure, but a true professional is always prepared for the worst-case scenario. You need to be able to calmly and clearly walk a client through this process. It's a clear sequence. First, there's a default. Then, a formal notice through a notary public. Then, a mandatory 30-day waiting period. And only then can enforcement begin. Knowing these steps makes you a reassuring guide in a really tough storm.
Fantastic work.
You've built the foundation and the shield. Now for the real game changer. Power Block 3 is all about jointly owned property. Seriously, mastering this complex area is what separates the top 1% from everybody else. This is your secret weapon.
So how in the world do we crack the code on these huge communities with hundreds, sometimes thousands of owners? You know, it seems complicated on the surface, but it all boils down to just a few core principles. You master these, and you master the buildings that make up most of this city.
And here it is, the absolute core principle of jointly owned property. A unit owner's share of the common areas, the lobby, the pool, the gym, it isn't just some general right. It's a mathematically calculated, undivided share. And the formula? It's simple. Your unit's area divided by the total area of all the units. This one calculation is the basis for pretty much everything, from service charges to voting rights.
Now for the unbreakable rules. First up, a developer can't just decide to sell off the rooftop pool. Common parts are tied to the units. They cannot be sold separately without DLD approval. Second, and this one is so important, in most standard residential buildings, it is RERA, the regulator, that directly appoints the management company, not the developer, not the owner's committee. This ensures things are managed impartially and professionally. Knowing this lets you expertly answer any questions your clients have about how their community is run.
We're in the home stretch. Power Block 4. You've got the legal knowledge down, now you need the financial precision. This is all about mastering the numbers and the final legal rulings that define success. This is where you learn to wield the tools to close any deal with absolute authority.
Let's put it to the test right now. Could you quote the exact DLD fee for a mortgage registration? Do you know the precise mechanics of the rent cap? These aren't just trivial details. These are the numbers that make or break a client's budget and a deal's viability. So, let's master them.
Just look at the precision here. Mortgage registration isn't a guess, it's exactly 0.25% of the debt value. A standard property valuation, that's a flat 4,000 dirhams. Knowing these numbers and others like the granted land transfer fees right off the top of your head means you can give your client an accurate financial picture instantly. This eliminates surprises and builds a massive amount of trust.
The rent cap can seem confusing, but really it's simple once you know the brackets. So here's the crucial point. If your client's rent is, say, 15% below the RERA index for their area, the absolute maximum a landlord can legally increase it is 5%. Not 10%, not 20%, just 5%. This specific actionable knowledge is exactly what clients pay you for. It is pure value.
Wow. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground. From landlord-tenant law to the complexities of JOP and the precision of DLD fees. And it all comes down to this single idea. Knowledge isn't just a passive thing you have. It's an active license. It's the authority you carry into every single negotiation, every client meeting.
You know, by mastering this material, by really internalizing these laws and numbers, you've fundamentally changed your professional identity. You're no longer just an agent who shows property. You are an advisor, a guardian, a strategist. You are the professional broker.
We've built the foundation, and we've armed you with the tools of a master. The license is yours. The market is waiting for true leaders. The only question left is the one you have to answer for yourself. Now, what are you going to build with it? Go out there and lead.